Welcome to the Going Beyond podcast. I'm Randy Zinn. I'm an entrepreneur, wellness expert, author, and the founder of the Going Beyond movement. I'm constantly exploring how individuals can make the most impact on a daily basis. And here's what I've learned. Your life is part of the change we want to see in the world. Your life is the movement. The work you do is that drop that causes that ripple effect of positivity. Let today's episode be part of your daily contribution toward change, the investment you make in yourself. Let it be the fuel you need to go beyond. If you're enjoying the Going Beyond podcast, consider subscribing so you never miss an episode. When you subscribe, our weekly episode arrives right onto your device on whichever platform you've subscribed from. We also appreciate 5-star ratings and reviews. Thanks so much for your support, friends. We're so glad you're hanging with us. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Going Beyond podcast. I'm thrilled you're here, and I just really trust in this time that I hit the record button and that the conversation that's about to unfold is literally divine, that it's meant to be not only for me, because I get the benefit of it, but absolutely important and meaningful for anyone who's going to listen. Today's conversation feels like absolutely in line with what I think is kind of on most of our minds right now. We're all reckoning with a lot of challenging topics, a lot of frenetic energy in the world of politics is the first word that comes to my mind, just probably paying attention to the debates right now, but not just the external, but the things that we're all feeling on the inside that we might not be able to name and explain or point to an exact why, but there's so much going on inside of us because we are vibrating with all of the energy going on this planet right now. There's a lot to dissect. There's a lot to understand. And there's a lot of power in our ability to lean into everything that's up right now. So today's guest is very excited to get to know her, actually. And I'm going to introduce her now, and then we'll welcome her to another great conversation. So I'm here today with Raquel Vasallo. She's a #1 best-selling author of Spiritual Seductress, the high-powered women's guide to devour the world through spiritual guidance. She is the preeminent spiritual advisor to female visionaries and leaders. She's an international speaker, mystic artist, and feminine leadership trendsetter. I'm not going to tell her story here in her interview, but she has some really major life moments that have elicited spiritual awakening, and I'm sure she's going to share more about that with us today. She's done a variety of kinds of work sharing her wisdom, but she now works directly with women who are rising into the next level of their offering to the world and using all her gifts to do that. So I just feel like this is the conversation we all need right now. And I'm just grateful that she's here with us. So Raquel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited to be on the show and have this conversation with you.
It feels divine. I mean, those of you know that hang out with me here on the podcast, I always kind of set the tone of the conversation with my guest and we kind of talk about what's up. And the minute that you talked about what's up, I was like, yup, that's what's up. Yeah, the timing is real. So tell us, in your own words, a little bit more about what you do and how you work with women. And once you do that, why this work is so critical right now.
Yeah. So my work has evolved to a space right now where I work with the visionaries and the leaders, those changemaker women who are on the cutting edge and they've built successful businesses. But if you have an intimate conversation with them, something is missing. And for most of them, what is really missing is fully stepping into their iconic, their high purpose work in the world. And if we dig in a little bit deeper, it's because there's some pieces inside of their life or inside of their mindset or energy that have to shift for them to be able to make that shift and then really give all that they came here to do and make that big, big, big contribution. And the reason why this is important is that this time is so critical. Many souls put their hand up to come to the earth plane at this time, and not all souls were chosen. So we are all here for a very specific reason. And especially this year, we've seen so much of what was hidden in the shadow start to come up to the surface and start to come to the light so that we can change it, so that we can heal it. And the only way that we can heal it is by doing the inner work of healing ourselves, number one, and then number two, stepping into this higher purpose. So it's really about everyone claiming their position so they can share their gifts. And that's how I believe we can really enact true change. And that's why I believe this work is so critical right now, to look inside and change inside. As we change ourselves and heal ourselves, we heal the collective and these paradigms that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, let's just get really specific because I feel like we need to. We're being put into a very intriguing pressure cooker kind of experience right now, where we're feeling all of this external pressure of so many things kind of opening up, right? Like a lot of ugliness revealing, showing itself, a lot of pain revealing itself, showing itself. And then there's, I would say that if you're a woman, and we're going to speak, I think we should speak to women for this conversation. If you're a woman who's purposefully leaning into work that she really cares about, we're going to assume that she has some kind of consciousness for wanting the world to be better. We assume that she is somewhat of an energetic, connected person.
Yes.
And so we're also having all of this experience inside of ourselves, so much coming up. And we sometimes don't have the tools to hold space for all of that.
It's really interesting that you came up with the idea of the pressure cooker, because I think it's a perfect visual to explain what we are feeling, and the pressure coming from the outside and from the inside, and feels like we're going to explode in a way because we're navigating uncharted territory right now. All these things that are coming up, they're new. We don't know how to deal with them. And so that's why I truly believe that now more than ever, having a spiritual practice and doing a lot of the healing work will not only relieve the pressure, but also help you in making the changes that you want to make, not just for you on a personal level or for your business, but really the change that you want to see out there in the world, because it starts with each one of us inside of us, right?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the moments that you went through your own shifts, your own moments when you saw like the statement that you just made about needing to lean into the spiritual to do the work you want to do. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, well, I think the very first time that happened was back in 2008. I was an architect living in New York, living the life, working for these star architects, super high achieving, feeling and thinking that I have it all together and I have my life figured out. Until one day on my way home from work, I was at an intersection and a woman ran a light. So I got run over by a car and I had a near-death experience.
Wow.
The positive side of all that was that all my channels opened up, and that's when I made the switch from being the quote-unquote successful female architect to the work I'm doing today. But it took a period of many months, not only just obviously to heal my physical body, but to kind of put the pause button and start to clean up all the things inside of me that I needed to do in order to be able to do this work. And so in our masculine paradigm, putting the pause button, can seem something that's not possible. And sometimes people think, either she comes from a wealthy family or she had a big savings account. No, I actually didn't have any of that. I quit my job. I think I had $3,000 in the bank when I made that move. And granted, yes, I moved to Spain and I lived with my parents for a little bit because I just wanted to put my life in order. But that was really hard for me after being independent, right? And being successful at what I did. But I knew I needed a pause in my life to kind of like take a new direction. And it was in that quiet time that I actually allowed myself the space to get quiet in my head and start to connect with a bigger wisdom, with a universal consciousness. So it wasn't no longer my small mind trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing next, but I can actually tap into something bigger that's guiding me on what to do next. And I can tell you just from working with clients and what I've been going through in this year in particular, it hasn't been that different. I haven't had the luxury of taking that amount of time off, but I have built more time into my schedule to get quiet so that I'm not so influenced by the mind that's out there that's wanting to control us right now, the media and all those pieces, so that I can tune into what I really want to hear and what I really want to bring into my life so that I can really be a person that's creating change.
When you tell your story, it kind of sounds representative of what many of us are experiencing in this period of time. Almost like that forced slowdown.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, we were forced to slow down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to face the reality of our demons or face the reality of a society that's not what we thought, or whatever other descriptive you want to put in.
I think all of us have been going through it, facing a lot of what was in the shadow that we didn't have time to look at, or we were turning in the other direction because we felt we weren't ready to deal with. And all of a sudden it was all put in our face, whether it was personal demons, let's call it, or the social ones that we're seeing, or the ones that are happening in nature right now. Everything is up for evaluation at this time. And so even though it seems like a very difficult time, at the same time, it was absolutely necessary for this to happen. We call this in as a species because we could no longer continue to do things the way we were going.
For those of us that might listen to that statement and say, we called this in, can you dissect that a little bit more so that someone who maybe that sounds shocking might understand what you mean when you say, we called this in?
Yeah. So our purpose here in this lifetime is to remember who we truly are. Doesn't matter what your exact purpose is, but on a general level is to remember who you really are. And who we are is we are divine beings, right? And as divine beings, we take care of other human beings. We take care of the animals. We take care of Mother Earth. Right? It's when you're in that place, you're really feeling the joy that you truly are, the love and the compassion that you are. And what happened is we forgot about that. And so we have been mistreating other human beings, the earth, the animals, etc. Right? So in order for us to remember who we are, because if you go deep inside, no matter where you are on your path, you know that you want goodness. You want goodness for yourself and everybody around you. Right? And so we call in things that can seem very uncomfortable or that we don't want to deal with, like the situation that's happening right now, but it's what's necessary in order to course correct. If all this didn't come to the surface, again, we would be looking in the other direction and continue to just focus on wealth and acquiring things and everything that we've been doing, instead of saying, no, we need to take care of our resources. We need to take care of the kids that are dying of hunger. We need to take care of all these animals that are no longer going to exist on our planet. So that's why we called it in as an opportunity to hit the pause button, like you were saying, take a look at this and make that course correction so that we can bring harmony for our future generations.
It does make sense. And I think we're all, whether we can phrase it that way or not, I think we're all kind of feeling that in some way, shape, or form. I would make that bridge to say most of the challenging things I've been through on a personal level, the moments of clarity and the things that have really clicked for me have been when I've made that connection of, okay, I'm going through this challenging thing, but it's actually course correcting me onto the path that my soul wants me to be on. It's not the easy pathway, but it's the pathway.
Right. And that happens so much on a personal level, especially when you're on purpose, even more so when you're an entrepreneur, because it requires so much growth and it doesn't all come tied up with a really pretty pink bow. No, it's actually very uncomfortable because it's moving beyond the programming that we have, who we think we are because of the way we grew up. And it does require for us to make big changes that in the moment can feel like, oh my God, I don't want to go there. I don't want to look at this. Please, somebody help me. Or kind of like, I just want to hide in a cave. But if you have the help, and that's what I've found over the years, I hired and worked with many coaches and mentors that would guide me to see and process this so that I could see the light on the other side in a much faster way. And like you said, then in hindsight, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that I went through this challenge. You know, like a couple of years ago, I had a very big challenge with my health. My whole body broke down. I had to stop working. So obviously it affected my finances, it affected my self-esteem. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't even walk my dog. My brain shut down. It was very, very intense. And I was having a conversation with a friend that we hadn't talked since, because she's been traveling the world. And she asked me, well, I'm sure you were asking yourself, why did this happen to you? Because it was such a difficult time of my life. And I said to her, yeah, I asked many times, and in the process, I wasn't getting an answer. But now I know the answer. It was a true purification of not just my physical body, because I had mercury detox. I found mercury poisoning. That's what I found out later. So it had to detox my physical body. But in that process of not being able to read and write, and sometimes not even being able to talk, I had to unplug from mass consciousness, because I couldn't even get on my phone, right? My brain wasn't working. So when you unplug from mass consciousness, you go through a different type of detox and you purify your thoughts, because you're not affected by outside thoughts anymore. So I feel like that really difficult time was just to get me centered more and more of who I am, without any outer influence, and more connected to divine source and being a channel for the work that I was supposed to do next.
Wow, that's very deep. So when you work with these powerful visionary women, what do you see as the obstacles? What are the things that you step in to support and lead these women into this next place? Because I mean, I think most women can relate to this dynamic that we're constantly feeling, this push-pull, this push toward that which we feel called for, and then the pull back into fear, limitations, patriarchy, you name it. I'm so curious to hear what you see in the work you do.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because I feel that there's so much to deal with, and especially as women, there's an added layer. And of course, a lot of the work is mindset work, right? Shifting the programming that you have and tapping into universal law and a universal consciousness that shows you unlimited potential, unlimited resources, creativity like you've never seen before. But in order to get there, not only are mindset shifts required, but true energetic shifts. So to be very specific, lately, a lot of what I've been seeing, I mean, I've been working with the divine feminine masculine for a long time. That always comes up, and that is the healing of the divine masculine within us. So a lot of these women that are very successful, high achieving, they've gotten there using masculine paradigms of force, control, competition, and then a lot of them get really burned out. So they either get sick, or their relationship falls apart, or the business looks really good on the outside, but they feel really unfulfilled on the inside. And it's like the golden handcuffs, like, get me out of here. They got out of corporate to do this, and now they feel tied down again. So this healing of, because we all have the masculine and the feminine, first this healing of the divine masculine in them, so they can understand and see a new way of moving through the world, which is more of bringing in the balance of the feminine, where there's a lot more flow, a lot more receiving, a lot more creativity. And once you receive all that, yes, then the masculine is the one that goes out and takes action into the world. But there has to be a really profound and deep healing of that piece to find that balance, that then they find balance in their business and their personal life. And a lot of what I've been seeing lately as well is very deep ancestral healing. So there's a lot of, I can share my own personal experience because I can talk about myself openly. Earlier this year, as we were going through the lockdown, a lot of anger was surfacing up for me about being a woman in my family. And I had never thought about this before. And also anger when I was an architect and being in rooms of 30 architects and engineers and being the only woman, or going to the construction site and having the men look down at me or not listen to me when I'm the only one that knew what had to be done. And all that anger all of a sudden came up to the surface of women being put down or being less than, and not only toward the men, but in my case in particular, also anger toward the women in my family for not standing up for themselves. And it was really interesting to see that all this was coming up at this very particular time that what we're going through, and the healing that I needed to do to let go of that, and not only let go of it, but make a very powerful energetic statement saying, this ends with me in my family lineage. No other woman will go through this anymore. And knowing that as I do that healing, it's affecting womanhood, the collective in general. So I've been seeing that come up a lot.
I have too. In a lot of conversations I've been having, the topic of how we're connecting with source, how we're connecting with our ancestors is a repeated theme, both as a source of healing pain, but also as a source of motivation and support, because so often we can disconnect from the things maybe that we can't see, but the things that really are with us. I just also came back recently from my mastermind retreat with my coach, who has been on the podcast, Raw Goddess. If any of you want to listen to that episode, you don't want to miss her. And so many themes of connecting with source and ancestors, and the power of very direct prayer and asking for support, like directly communicating, is something that I don't know if the typical mainstream feedback toward women is to ask for what we need, whether that's from another human being or from our ancestors.
And if I may add something, what we need and also what we desire.
Yeah.
Because it's another piece that I've been seeing a lot is, how do you expand your container to receive? And it's going beyond the need and into the desire. Again, not just personal, but what you want to see happen, because that support is there and we completely forget to ask. And so the universe actually wants us to give us what we want even more than we want to have it. It's just we have to open up that connection and be in the vibration to be able to receive it, to receive all the greatness and the goodness and the joy and the love that we want in our lives.
So what is the process to receiving that in that pure, like I almost imagine I can see you, those listening can't see you, but you just made this move with your hands where it was almost like imagining this tunnel like above you that shoots down into your head. And I get that, like that visual makes sense to me. It's like that beam of light. But, let's say a woman is listening to this conversation right now and she's like, I want to open up to receiving that level of support from my ancestors, from the universe. Where do we begin?
It's funny that you said that. Yes, because that is exactly what I do. In that visual, I imagine myself in a tube of light where I am directly connected with source, and there's nothing that can get in the way of that, right? And today, actually, because it's Wednesday, those energies are amplified. So there are 7 sacred flames, and today, Wednesday, it's the emerald green ray of healing and abundance. So it's really interesting that this came up on this very day, because the process is you connect through that tube of light, and it's not just asking for what you want, but taking a step further is being in gratitude for receiving it as if it's already here, right? Thank you. Thank you for rain in California. I'm just going to give an example, right? Thank you for the new clients that are signing up this month. Whatever it is, thank you for my perfect health. Whatever it is that you want to put in there, and not just saying it, but in that moment that you allocate to do this every day, that you're really feeling it in your body so that there can be a shift on a cellular level. And the more you do that, then you start to, in a way, trick the mind to believe in that moment it's all about the feeling, because the feeling is what sends out that signal out to the universe. And when you're doing it in the form of gratitude, that is the currency of abundance of the universe. So the tricky thing is that the mind will come in thinking, well, I don't know how this is going to happen, right? The lack or the limitation. And that's when you remind yourself, you go back to the feeling as if it's already here. And you said, thank you, mind, for telling me that. It's not up to you. You can do your job. Right now, I'm in my higher self and I'm connecting to Source. Let Source and the universe do their job. And their job is to deliver this to me and to show me the how. The how will be shown. I am so grateful for the how.
I actually did, I'm forgetting the author, but I have a feeling you'll know. I did the abundance book, the abundance practice. It's this little book. It'll come to me. But anyway, it's a 40-day.
Yeah, I have that book. I've done that practice and I give it to clients and I go through it over and over.
Yeah, I did that in the past few months, and it was fascinating. So it takes you through 40 days of, in a way, affirming truths about abundance. And I think the big takeaway for me is that, it's not actually up to me to do very much. I mean, we make ourselves so massive in our own minds, all the control that we have. But actually, if we understand how abundance and blessings work, it's actually not us making it happen, it's Source. And all we have to do is so completely tap and tune into that the flow is happening. And it's not that we're passive in our own life. Of course, we're doing the good work, but it's with that level of trust and knowing. And I find it to be a beautiful relief and really, really good for my nervous system.
Right, because it calms everything down. And it's also really important to know that when we're using the word abundance, we're not just talking about money.
Correct.
Right? We're talking an abundance of all the resources that help you in your life to live your purpose and to lift people up.
Yeah. I find something so intriguing about the time we're in right now, because just like you talk about this metaphor for when you've been through such challenging moments in your life and you had to slow down, disconnect in order to go deeper. We're in this period of opportunity for more of that. At the same time, doesn't it feel like it's becoming louder and noisier out there? So the conflict and the pull for most people between this knowing that the going in and the going deeper is where the good work happens, but at the same time, we can be so distracted and so disconnected from what our gut tells us. It's a really just giving voice to a dynamic that I think is particularly challenging right now.
Yes, I completely agree. I go through that myself, and I found it even more challenging to stick to my schedule to do it. So I'll give an example of how I deal with this. Because obviously as an entrepreneur, you fill up your schedule so easily, right? And I always had my sacred soul connection time where I would block out a good 4 to 6 hours, one full time block, whether it was on a Wednesday or on a Friday, and that was my sacred time. And I found myself ignoring my sacred time, and then finding myself that I've gone into frustration or things aren't happening the way that I want them to. Of course, I look back and I see, oh, I didn't give myself the space. And that's back to the masculine paradigm of filling your calendar so that you are quote unquote productive, because it seems like if you're doing other activities, then there's not a direct ROI. However, when you move into the feminine and you use a block of time to do just what really fills you up and something that is very creative, like for me, I use painting for that. That is my portal. Then immediately things start to move into flow. Things that were stuck in my business that I didn't have an answer to come to me immediately. So actually, at the end of the day, it's saving me time. So it's more about having the discipline and giving this a try until you start to see that, yes, this is my sacred time. And I'm applying it to myself, as I said, because for whatever reason, something was happening lately that twice I made it shorter.
Yeah. I mean, I say this stuff all the time, and I just want to repeat it here because I hear you saying it in your words, which is that we sometimes make our sacred personal time this concept that's very complicated and requires a lot but it can become part of your committed schedule and something that is just highly regarded and understood as that time, that portal for good insight, even just like mental, physical slowdown, or in my case, like I've been going hiking and that's been my sacred time. So to some degree, that's a physical speed up, but it's incredibly centering. So just to remind our listeners that these commitments to yourself, whether it's a hike or painting as Raquel does, like this is incredibly important. And it doesn't take a lot to build it into your schedule. It's just about holding it up as incredibly valuable to your overall purpose.
Right. And it's, like I share with clients, those intuitive hits and downloads that we all want because they're miracle workers in our life, because they give solutions to things that immediately, those do not come when you're sitting at your desk in front of the computer. They come when you're creating space for them to actually come. And that's what we're saying here. And by the way, hiking is a big one for me too.
Yeah. I have huge downloads like in the shower or when I'm cooking. It's like when you're sort of in this zone, but you have to give yourself break to enter that zone. And then you add in layers like creativity, like the arts or nature, and you're just even more bringing that into possibility.
Right.
So Raquel, like, you have the listeners of some really spiritually curious people here right now. And before we go, I'd love for you to give just a couple of tips, like really tangible tips for the woman who wants to be elevating this energy in her life and knows that it's important for her work in the world.
The first one that's coming up is to acknowledge yourself. Again, we're so much in the doing and trying to solve so many things right now, and our energy is pulled in so many directions that it's so important to, at the end of the day, I've been doing this practice and sharing it with my clients, to acknowledge yourself for 3 things that happen, that you made happen. And sometimes they can be so simple and beautiful, like making somebody smile or making somebody stay by something you said. Because again, that puts you into that currency of receiving, right? Instead of, let me focus on the next thing I have to get done. The second one is to either list the things that you're grateful for or the things that you actually received in the day. Because what happens is the more that you're focusing your attention on that, the universe is hearing, oh, okay, she is ready to receive more by doing less. So just let's send her more. But again, it's really important. If you just do this in your mind, what happens is we tend to go through it too quickly, or text message comes in and it's not really focused energy. So it's really important to write it down, and at the end of the day is the best time. So it's a sacred 2 to 3 minute journaling exercise that just keeps you in that open flow.
I love that. Raquel, I feel so lucky to have had this time with you and to give these nuggets of incredibly powerful wisdom, because I think the wisdom that we all need right now is not as complex as we make it seem. It's simple, it's clear, it's divine, and if we welcome it in, we will reap the benefits.
Simplicity is key. We tend to complicate everything.
Before we go, please tell our listeners where to find you and where to follow you and to connect with you if there is interest in learning more from you.
Yeah. Of course, they can come to my website, raquelvasallo.com, and the full spelling, I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes because my last name is a little complicated, where there's transmissions that come through about every couple of weeks. If anybody's interested in going a little bit deeper, and I like to have more of a personal connection, I have a private Facebook group for these change makers who are on a spiritual mission, and I share content there that I don't share anywhere else. I do a sacred teaching every Thursday, and we get to talk to me and ask me questions, and so I get to know people more. So if anybody would like to join us, I would so love to have you. And all you have to do is go to thesacredpowercircle.com, and you can apply to join. I would love to see.
I love that. And I just want to encourage everyone to really, if you got that little spring of, ooh, I'd love to explore that. Like, listen, there's so much out there right now with powerful teachers like Raquel that are offering this level of support and love and wisdom. It's there for you. So I really just personally encourage you to step in, especially if you felt that little ding. Don't ignore it. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you. I know that we could talk for hours, but just even being able to give this essence of spiritual connection and support and love during this crazy wild ride that we're all on, I'm so grateful for it.
Oh, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for those of you that listened, I know you enjoyed this conversation, and I know that it got you thinking about what connections you can start to lean more into, who you can speak to ask for the support you need. If you're curious more about abundance, there's some really amazing work out there to lean into and read about. We'll put some of those things in the show notes for you. So again, thank you for hanging out with us today. Raquel, I wish you so much luck in this really important work you're doing. And until next time, take care of you.
Thank you.